As you saw, the president just wrapped up a meeting in the Oval Office with 4 families from different parts of the country. They're veterans, small business owners, workers, moms, dads, and students. And they all had one thing in common. The president's plan to cut taxes and reform our broken tax code will help them thrive and build a better life and a better future for themselves and their children. This event was an important reminder that while Washington focuses on the politics of the day, the president is focused on the forgotten men and women around our nation. These are the families who deserve a tax cut for Christmas, and that's exactly what we're going to deliver. Looking ahead, the president will visit Mississippi on Saturday, where they are celebrating the state's bicentennial 200 years of statehood. To mark the occasion, the president will participate in the grand openings of the Museum of Mississippi History and the Mississippi Civil Rights Museum. Tomorrow, First Lady Melania Trump and Second Lady Karen Pence will travel to Texas to continue their efforts in assisting those affected by this year's devastating hurricane season. They will participate in a meet and greet with first responders in Corpus Christi and then travel to Rockport to meet with a family whose home was destroyed in the hurricane. Mrs. Trump and Mrs. Pence will also visit a local elementary school to speak with faculty and students about the hurricane. And their last stop will be at a local food bank to meet with volunteers and help sort boxes for donations. Finally, I know there have been a lot of questions surrounding the president's decision on Jerusalem. Tomorrow, the president will deliver remarks regarding this action. At 5:30 this evening, senior administration officials will hold a background briefing here to explain the president's decision. And with that, I'll take your questions. Major?
Sarah, one issue that you may have seen this morning is the White House or the president at any level considering creating a global or regional spy network that would circumvent the U.S. intelligence apparatus and serve the president outside of the normal and legally defined intelligence gathering mechanisms?
I'm not aware of any plans for something of that definition or anything similar to that at this time.
The president would be opposed to that.
I haven't had that conversation with him, but I'm not aware of any plans for anything like that moving forward.
Your official has been briefed on that idea, or has been discussed at any level in this administration?
I haven't done a full survey of every member of the administration, but I can tell you as of right now, that's not something that's currently being planned and not something that I'm aware is moving forward in any capacity. Again, I'm not going to answer every hypothetical for every single member. Did some random person off the street come in and say something? I don't know, Major. I'm sorry?
The president might consider.
Again, I haven't asked him, but it's not something that's currently in the works. John?
World leaders have spoken out, Sarah, in the last 24 hours about the possible move of the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Mahmoud Abbas says that it would have grave consequences for peace and stability in the region. King Abdullah said much the same thing. Saudi Arabia, at least publicly, is saying the same thing, though until privately they're saying something different than that. French President Macron said that he thought it was a bad idea. In the face of all of that, would the president ignore that advice from world leaders and go ahead and make the move at this time?
I'm not going to get ahead of the president's remarks that he'll make tomorrow. He did speak with a number of leaders this morning, and he's going to continue to have conversations with relevant stakeholders, but ultimately he'll make what he feels is the best decision for the United States.
Is it safe to say, other than Israel, which thinks that this move is 22 years overdue, that all of the feedback that he's been getting from world leaders is overwhelmingly negative about this idea?
No, again, he spoke with 5 leaders. That's hardly indicative of everybody across the globe, but certainly, he's going to continue to have conversations with different leaders from across the world, and we'll keep you posted as those calls take place, and we'll let you know when the president's made a decision. Cecilia.
Hey, Sarah. Yesterday, the president said that he felt very badly for General Flynn. Would he consider pardoning him?
I'm not aware of that. That has come up or any process or decision on that front.
So that's you haven't talked to him about it, or
no? I haven't asked. I
consider
haven't asked the president whether or not he would do that.
You have not.
Can you I think before we start discussing the pardons for individuals, we should see, what happens in specific cases too.
So is it fair to say it's on the table?
No, I just said I haven't had the conversation with him because I don't feel that it's necessary until, you get further down the road and determine whether or not that's even something needed. Steve?
There's a
Back on the embassy, has the president made up his mind about this, or is this decision still in flux a bit?
The president, I would say, is pretty solid in his thinking at this point. April.
Sarah, a couple of questions. One, there are comments from people from the NAACP, from black ministers, who are planning on protesting and boycotting this weekend for the president's visit to the Civil Rights Museum. What say you?
I think that would be honestly very sad. I think this is something that should bring the country together to celebrate the opening of this museum and highlighting civil rights movement and the progress that we've made. And I would hope that those individuals would join in that celebration instead of protesting it. However, they have every right to protest it. Jordan?
It's an insult that he's coming as we've had issues of Charlottesville, the back and forth. The president couldn't get his statement straight on Charlottesville.
I think he got his statement very clear when he condemned all forms of racism, bigotry, and violence. There's no gray area there, and I think he made it very clear what his position is. Jordan.
Thanks, Sarah. Did the president know that Michael Flynn lied to the FBI at the time that he fired him in February?
Look, the president knew that he lied to the vice president, and that was the reason for his firing. Matthew.
I have a follow-up. So your predecessor said on June 6th, it's the president of the United States, so they're considered official statements by the president of the United States in regards to his tweet. In regards to his tweets, does that standard still apply to the president's tweets?
It does, and I know that you're probably referencing the tweet that was written by the president's attorney, and he's since clarified that, and I would refer you back to the attorney's clarification on that. Matthew.
Thanks, Sarah. The White House originally said that if the accusations against Roy Moore were true, then Moore should step aside. I'm wondering how the president reached the conclusion that all of Moore's accusers, including those who have put forward evidence, are lying.
Didn't say they were lying. The president's position hasn't changed, still finds those concerning. But as we've also said, the president feels that he would rather have a person that supports his agenda versus somebody who opposes his agenda every step of the way. And until the rest of that process plays out, you have a choice between two individuals, and the president's chosen to support Moore.
Even if that person who would support his agenda has done what Roy Moore's accusers have said he's done?
Again, we've said that the allegations are concerning, and if true, he should step aside, but we don't have a way to validate that, and that's something for the people of Alabama to decide, which we've also said, and we maintain that, and ultimately it will come down to the people of Alabama to make that decision. David?
Yeah, Sarah, can you tell me a little bit about the process and timing as how the president got to the potential Jerusalem announcement tomorrow? Can we have somewhat of a backstory on that to the degree that you can at this point?
I can tell you that it was a very thoughtful interagency process in terms of specifics. That's something that will be addressed in greater detail later this evening at the background briefing and then further by the president in his remarks tomorrow.
Just a quick follow-up, and evangelicals' role in this, how crucial has that been in terms of the Faith Advisory Council?
Look, the president wanted to make the decision that was the best decision for the United States, and I'm not going to get ahead of anything beyond the events later today and tomorrow. John?
Thanks a lot, sir. I have a question for you about the special counsel's office. Does the president believe that special counsel Robert Mueller or anybody on his staff is biased in any way against the president?
I think we've seen some reports that certainly cause a great deal of concern, and we hope that those are fully looked at and investigated. Blake?
Just a follow-up for you, if I may, Sarah. I think it was about 5 or 6 weeks ago that you indicated from that podium on a few occasions that you believe, the White House believes, that Mr. Mueller's investigation will be wrapping up shortly. Since that time, we've seen that a very high-level aide to the president, former aide to the president, the former National Security Advisor, has entered a plea deal with the special counsel's office. Do you still believe that this investigation is wrapping up soon?
We do, and I'd refer you to the comments that were made by Ty Cobb, where he indicated as such over the last few days. Blake?
Sarah, thank you. Let me ask you two questions on so-called red lines. If Robert Mueller ends up looking into the president's finances, or if he has already looked into the president's finances, does this White House believe that is a red line, and if so, why?
Look, I think it's important to note And hopefully you guys have seen the statement that Jay Sekulow, a member of the president's legal team, has put out within the last hour, that they confirmed that the news reports that the special counsel had subpoenaed financial records relating to the president are completely false. No subpoena has been issued or received. We've confirmed this with the bank and other sources. I think that this is another example of the media going too far too fast, and we don't see it going in that direction.
Let me ask you the second red line. This White House has consistently said there are 2 red lines on tax reform, middle class relief, and then a 20% corporate rate. But the president over the weekend seemed to suggest that he would be amenable for a corporate rate up to 22%. Why would he be willing to step over his own red line on that issue?
Look, the president said I guess maybe a couple of hours ago that we're firm and we feel strongly about the 20%, and we're very excited about the progress we've made on that front, and think that we'll get there on both sides in the House and the Senate. Mike?
Sarah?
So two quick things. One, does the president believe, as the lawyer from the Solicitor General's office said at the court today, that a baker could put a sign in his window saying, "We don't bake cakes for gay weddings," and that would be legal?
I'm sorry, could you say the first part of that question again? My cough kind of drowned you out.
So the Solicitor General, the lawyer from the Solicitor General's office for the administration, said today in court, in the Supreme Court, that it would be legal, it would be possible for a baker to put a sign in his window saying, quote, "We don't bake cakes for gay weddings." Does the president agree that that would be okay?
The president certainly supports religious liberty, and that's something that he talked about during the campaign, has since upheld since taking office.
And that would
I believe that would include that.
Okay, and one other question just on Russia, but not one that you would expect. What does the president think of the decision to ban Russian athletes from the Olympics in 2018?
I haven't had the ability to speak with him directly about that decision since it was made here earlier today, but I'll certainly be happy to talk to him and follow up with you on that. Catherine.
Sarah, House Republican leaders had to push back a vote in a short-term budget bill this week to avert a shutdown. Does the White House think that a shutdown is a possibility?
It's always a possibility, but it's certainly not what we hope for. And we're have both Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer coming later this week, and the president hopes to be able to have conversations with them to make sure that doesn't happen. Hallie?
Then the president doesn't think that it would be politically advantageous?
Look, I said that that's not what we would like to see happen, and we're going to have meetings and try to make sure that it doesn't. Hallie?
Two quick ones for you, and just a statement of fact. When did the president know that Mike Flynn lied to the FBI?
As I said earlier, I referred you back to John Dowd's clarification, and I would.
I'm asking for a date. When did he find out? Was it when the announcement was made Friday? Was it prior to that?
Again, I'm not aware of those specifics, but I would refer you to John Dowd for that specific question.
Dowd has been
I would actually
unresponsive.
refer you to John Dowd on that specific question, since
My
it's a
second
legal
question,
matter.
but I just want to
I'm
make
not allowed to weigh into.
No problem. The point to you, you have weighed in on other special counsel matters before, and it's just a statement of fact of when, during the administration, what day the president discovered this lie issue.
And I'm telling you as a statement of fact that you should contact John Dowd. Doesn't seem that hard. Stephen?
Questions on Roy Moore. Sarah, you said just a minute ago that the president would want somebody in the Senate who supports his agenda versus one who does not. Excuse me, and I just want to clarify here then, is it the White House's position then, sort of formally here, that it is worse to have a Democrat in that Senate seat than somebody who is accused of sexually abusing a teen girl?
Look, as I said, we find the allegations to be troubling.
And why did the president endorse?
Look, I think that those are different things in terms of we aren't going to be the ones to determine that process. That's for the people of Alabama to determine what those things come down on. He does want people that support his agenda. He's not going to obviously support a Democrat. And I think if that's our standard, then we need to look at a number of members of Congress that have had allegations brought against them that are still in office. Stephen.
Thanks, Sarah. I do want to nail something down with respect to John Dowd and what he's been telling us in the last couple of days. He's argued that the president cannot be charged with obstruction of justice because he is the chief law enforcement officer in the country. That's his opinion. Does the White House share that opinion? Has the White House counsel's office looked into this question? Does it share that perspective?
Look, I'm not going to get into a back and forth on legal theories, but I can tell you, as the president has said, there's no collusion, there's no obstruction, and that we're confident that the facts will show that when this is wrapped up.
What do you
Jim?
think of the whole notion of obstruction of justice, though? I mean, it's been discussed in the last couple of days. A lot of people have been talking about it. What do you think about it?
I'm not an attorney, and as far as I know, only John Decker in the room is. And so, if you want to ask him legal questions, you certainly can. I don't know if he'll answer them, but that's as far as I'm going to go on that. Jim,
I'm not an attorney either. Let me ask you about.
I know that's why I didn't call you out.
Thank you. I appreciate that. This decision on Jerusalem, is the president concerned that there could be violence as a result of recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel? Has that been looked at by this White House?
A number of things have been looked at that have been weighed into the president's decision, but as I said a few minutes ago, I'm not going to get ahead of his remarks, and we'll be certainly happy to address those at a later time.
Following up on Roy Moore, just very quickly, the folks got a couple of questions. Isn't there a moral decision that you're making here? And I'm sure you've heard this talked about in the news the last couple of days as the president has decided to endorse Roy Moore. This is somebody who has been accused of child abuse, of molesting children. How can that vote in the Senate be that important that you would take a gamble on somebody who has been accused of molesting kids?
I think that's
of
something,
harming
as I've
somebody
said,
who's underage.
As I've said, that's something for the people of Alabama to decide, and that's up for
President's wrestled
them.
with in any way? Has he wrestled with that question?
As I said, we find the allegations very troubling, and again, this is up to the people of Alabama to make that decision. I'm not a voter in Alabama and can't make that decision. Brian.
Sarah, thank you. The president said that the tax plan will hurt him individually. Will the president release his taxes to prove that?
I'm not aware of any plan to do that, but if it changes, I'll certainly let you know.
I mean, he can release it even if it's under audit. He can release his tax returns.
As he said, as long as it's under audit, he's not going to do that, and I'm not aware of any plans to change that policy at this time. John?
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. A matter of procedure on the Roy Moore endorsement. Did the president have any conversations with Chairman McDaniel of the RNC after he made his position known, or did he talk to State Chairman Latham in Alabama or any of the players involved in the Republican National Committee before they decided to get back in the race and support Roy Moore?
I know there have been conversations between administration officials and the RNC and supported that move, but legally I can't, because of the Hatch Act, go much further beyond that.
Can't say who the officials are.
I know that there were multiple conversations. I'm not aware if the president spoke specifically with the chairwoman. I'd have to check on that and let you know. But I do know the administration supported the RNC's decision. However, I can't go any further than that at this time. Hunter?
Thank you, Sarah. Given the president's endorsement, does he agree with Roy Moore that Muslims should not be allowed to serve in Congress?
I haven't asked him about a past statement from Roy Moore.
But, I mean, you're saying that their agendas are kind of in lockstep.
I'm saying he
Does that go
supports the
both ways?
president's agenda. The president doesn't necessarily support everything of Moore's agenda. Amen.
Thanks, Sarah. Does the president expect Deutsche Bank or any financial institutions to cooperate with requests for documents from U.S. law enforcement if they get them?
As I said a few minutes ago, Jay Sekulow, a member of the president's legal team, put out that
Message to the financial institutions themselves, if they get a request, should they comply with that?
Look, I'm not going to get into hypothetical situations and try to determine and project everything that could happen. We know that it hasn't happened up until this point, and that the reports out were totally false. And again, the media got ahead of their skis a little bit on pushing and driving that story that wasn't true. Brian?
Just to follow up on one more bit, are you saying that you're saying let the people decide, but this administration has endorsed Roy Moore? Why endorse him if you want the people to decide? You're influencing the decision by endorsing him. And secondly, are you saying that no matter who runs as a member of the GOP, it's okay as long as you are in lockstep with the president and vote the way he wants?
Once again, I'm not going to get into every person that could or couldn't run for office down the line. Hold on, I'm going to finish answering the question if you'll allow me to. I'm not going to address, you asked, the end of your question was every person that runs for office. One, I'm not going to weigh into, because I don't know who may run for office. But what I can say, the president made that decision, and he decided that it was better to have somebody that supports his agenda than a Democrat that doesn't. Again, it's still up to the people of Alabama to decide. They're ultimately the only ones that can vote in that election. See what happens. Last question, Dave.
Thanks, Sarah. The administration reported today that illegal border crossings have dropped to a 45-year low. Does that lessen the urgency as we're getting down to spending decisions here about whether to go forward with building the wall in this budget?
I think it shows probably the effectiveness of the Trump presidency, and another success story as we wrap up the year, and certainly something that could be looked at. But I think the need for the border wall and border security, as well as responsible immigration reform, still stands, and we still need to look at all the ways that we can protect our national security, and we still feel strongly that that's one of them. Thanks so much, guys.
The briefing, guys, are going to be embarked.
That was the White House press briefing with Sarah Sanders, and this is the post-show for the White House press briefing at Right Side Broadcasting. I am Steve Lookner. We're going to take your comments and read them on the air. What did you think about the press briefing? Is there anything you particularly liked in it that you didn't like? Are there any questions you wanted to see asked? Are there any particular answers by Sarah Sanders that stood out to you? What did you think of the questions? Write to me on Twitter at Lookner, at Lookner. I'm going to start reading your comments on the air in about a minute. Just want to, say real quick, a couple of programming reminders. On Friday night, we will be doing full coverage of President Trump's rally in Pensacola, Florida. The rally itself starts at, I believe, 7 Central, so that would be 8 Eastern time. And we will be there as usual, not just for the rally. We'll start broadcasting several hours before the rally. We'll be interviewing people, all kinds of people in line waiting to get into the rally. We'll show you all of the speeches uncut for the rally, unlike the networks who don't show you pretty much any of the speeches before President Trump. And a lot of times the networks don't even show you all of President Trump's speech, but we'll show you all of his rally speech. And then after the rally, we'll have a post show where we interview people in the crowd after the rally. So we really do full coverage. We like to say the next best thing to being there, if you want to be there, but you can't be there, is to watch Right Side Broadcasting's full coverage of the rally. So that's Friday night. And then tonight, for those of you who are interested in the Alabama Senate race, we will be broadcasting starting in just a few hours at 7 Eastern. We will be broadcasting the Roy Moore rally from Fairhope, Alabama with Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon will be at that rally. So at 7 p.m. on Right Side Broadcasting on YouTube, you can watch our coverage of the Roy Moore rally. And if you like our coverage, if you like having an alternative to the mainstream media, please consider donating, because we are viewer supported. Your support lets us come on the air. We were on the air for several hours last night covering the California fires when none of the mainstream media was covering it. They were just showing reruns. And we're going to be covering President Trump's rally, full coverage. No one goes to the rallies and interviews the people in line and shows you all the speeches like we do. So if you like that coverage, we are viewer supported. It's your donations that keep us on the air. And it's going to cost us money to go to the rally too. So if you want to support Right Side, you can click on the dollar sign at the bottom of the YouTube chat. There's a little dollar sign there at the bottom of the YouTube chat. And you can also go to rsbn.tv/donate, rsbn.tv/donate. And a quick thank you. We already got a couple donations. Dan Kniepa gave 25 euros and said, buy wall bonds. Thank you, Dan. And Mr. Nicktown gave $5 and said, say hi to Phil and hashtag MAGA. Thank you for your donations. We appreciate it. Thanks also to the moderators in both the YouTube chat room and on our website for moderating their chats today. All right, I want to see if anybody's written to me yet. Real quick, during a couple quick things that were highlights in terms of news made during the Sarah Sanders press briefing that we just saw. Sarah Sanders said that tomorrow President Trump will be making an announcement about his policy on the American embassy in Israel. It is believed that he will announce that he is moving the American embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, because he called a number of Middle Eastern leaders today, including I know he called Mahmoud Abbas, the head of the Palestinian Authority, and he called, I don't know if he called the King of Saudi Arabia or MBS from Saudi Arabia, the Crown Prince. I have to look that up. He did call King Abdullah of Jordan and talk to him about it as well. So he called a number of Middle Eastern leaders and told them he is planning on moving the embassy to Jerusalem. It's something he promised during his campaign. It is probably going to be controversial in a lot of Middle Eastern countries. But he's going to give an announcement on it tomorrow, so we will bring that to you live tomorrow. Also, other piece of big news we heard from the White House press briefing, Sarah Sanders said it is not true, the reports are not true, that President Trump's financial records from Deutsche Bank were subpoenaed by the Mueller investigation. So there were a number of reports like this one from the Wall Street Journal that said Trump's Deutsche Bank records subpoenaed by Mueller. Sarah Sanders said these reports are false. They are not true. All right, I'd love to hear from you. What did you think about the briefing? Give me a shout on Twitter, @Lookner, @LOOKNER. Virtual Frog writes in, no subpoena for Trump's financial records. Who started this fake news? Reagan Better writes in, it seems President Trump hasn't cleared up the Deutsche Bank issue. Trump ignored press questions, shouted during the press conference earlier today. Well, I can only go on what, I didn't see that, I can only go on what Sarah Sanders just said. And Sarah Sanders just said in the press briefing, she said categorically, there has not been a subpoena for the records from Deutsche Bank. That's what she said. Let's look at more of your comments here. Craig Gordon says, can you give us an explanation on the significance of moving the embassy in Israel? Why are people upset? Thank you. So the short version of this, I am no expert on this, but the very short version is that Jerusalem is seen as a holy land by both Muslims and Christians and Jewish people. So both Muslims and Jews, along with Christians, see Jerusalem as an extremely important city. And there's competing claims about Jerusalem. There's constantly competing claims there about who's in control of Jerusalem, where people should be allowed to go, because a lot, these different, both Muslims and Jews see that as a sacred city, a very sacred city for their religion. And so it's a very touchy area. I do know that during, I think it was the 6-Day War in 1967, some of Jerusalem was taken over by Israel. But basically it's a disputed area. There's lots of, anytime like Israel moves to establish itself more in Jerusalem, that bothers the Muslims because, they don't want to lose Jerusalem and have Israel take over Jerusalem. So there's constant, tension there over how much control each side gets in Jerusalem. And so basically, if roughly speaking, if the U.S. moves its embassy to Jerusalem, and also I think I got to look this up. There's something about acknowledging that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. But if the U.S. moves its embassy to Jerusalem, that's seen in some way as taking Israel's side over the Jerusalem issue and over like who really controls Jerusalem issue, because Jerusalem is so touchy. So it's just there's neither side really wants to give any ground on Jerusalem. And if the U.S. moves its embassy there, then you could have Muslim countries thinking, the U.S. is taking Israel's side and they don't recognize our claim to Jerusalem, a Muslim claim to Jerusalem, as they should. So that's a very, very rough, by no means am I an expert on this, that's a very rough general explanation of what the tension's about in Jerusalem. And there are holy sites for both religions in Jerusalem. Both the Jewish religion and the Muslim religion have very holy sites in Jerusalem. So a lot of tension over it, and that's my very, very, very rough explanation of why it's seen as why Muslim countries might be angry about President Trump moving the embassy to Jerusalem. And I also want to show you real quick, I saw a couple of posts about this that I want to show you, if I can find them here. So here's one today from BNO News. Trump called Jordanian King Abdullah II and told him, too, that he intends to move the U.S. embassy to Jerusalem. Abdullah warned it could have serious consequences for the region's stability. And then there's also this tweet. Saudi King, so President Trump talked to Saudi King Salman today in a call with Trump. He warned that recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel would be a flagrant provocation of Muslims all over the world. So I believe that the U.S. has never recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. I need to do some more reading on this issue. So I will go back and do that. I was up very late covering the fire last night, and I unfortunately did not do the prep for this White House press briefing that I normally would like to do, so I apologize for that. Let's see here. Joe, I got your text. Thank you. Joe wanted me to mention that on Drudge right now, he's talking about these allegations, I guess, against the I think the head of the National Enquirer, top gossip editor, rocked by sex allegations. So you can read about that at the Drudge Report. All right, I want to get back to your comments and also write to me at @Lookner. What do you think of the press briefing? What do you think of the different big stories in the news today? Write to me at @Lookner. I'll read your comments on the air. Thank you to Carl Peterson for your donation. Carl says, move the UN to North Korea. Problem solved. #Waffle House. I was thinking I still need to go to Waffle House. I've never been. There's one kind of near where I live in Atlanta now. So I will go one day. Joey Fountain writes in, why is Roy Moore not entitled to the presumption of innocence? It's not like we've seen pictures of him groping a woman in her sleep. At Al Franken JS. So Joey, I think what you might be referring to with that question is and Joe said, I forgot S Blaster. S Blaster made a donation. Thank you, Joe. S Blaster made a donation, said, they do all this S for us, fam. They travel to these events and it costs lots of money. YouTube censors conservatives. They can't even make money no more. Also, good job, Margaret Howell, on the pre-program. Yes, good job, Margaret. Long live the RSBN. Thank you, S Blaster, very much for your donation. That's very nice of you. But in terms of that Roy Moore issue, there were a couple of questions today. I know Jim Acosta asked a couple questions about this, and there were other questions about this, of the effect. The questions are something like, how can you be supporting Roy Moore? How can the president be supporting an accused child molester? And they're asked with this tone of like, how are you doing this thing, which is like the worst thing in the world to do? It's not like, it's the question, I mean, a way of asking this question would be, so does the president think that there's any possible issue maybe with supporting a accused child molester? Is that something he's concerned about, or does he think that that's not, something that is accusations not enough to really drive his concern? I mean, there's like a sort of neutral way of asking it, but the way these questions are asked in the press briefing are like, how is the president supporting an accused child molester? I mean, that's really the tone they're asked in. And it's like, it's as if it's just this open and shut thing that somebody accused of something should never be supported by the White House they should just disown themselves. And I at least think you could make an argument on both sides. While I'm not going to tell you what to think about this. All I'm saying is I can understand someone who says the White House should not support Roy Moore, but I could also understand somebody who says, well, given, that the accusations haven't been proven in court, given that, of the women who accused him, only one was of non-legal age. You're talking about one accuser who was of non-legal, of below the age of consent. Maybe we should, somebody might say, well, I'm not sure about these accusations, and I don't think that just accusations alone should require the White House not to take a stand on a candidate. I can see somebody plausibly arguing either of those things. So to me, it's odd to hear these questions asked with a tone of the tone is this. I mean, the tone that they're asked in is like, how can the president say 2 + 2 = 5? It's like the tone is asked is like, it's like as if the president, as if no rational person could ever even think of not disowning themselves from Roy Moore. And just because he was accused of something, accused of the child molestation thing with the 14-year-old. And all I'm saying is I think there are reasonable arguments that can be given on both sides. You don't have to agree with both arguments, but it's just strange to me that when the press asks these questions, they ask them as if like they literally don't consider there to be a reasonable argument on the other side. So anyway, I find that odd. Anyways, let's get to more of your comments here. Andrew Sova says he's having some issues with our feed, that it's freezing up. He says, is YouTube, I'm watching YouTube
thank you to
on the YouTube feed on my
Thank you to a very special man,
monitor,
Orrin Hatch, for the introduction, and that was truly a nice introduction, and I appreciate
refreshing
it.
the stream, Andrew.
You are a
That's the best I can
true
tell you.
fighter,
And
Oren. I have
know
to
it's
say,
sometimes
I've gotten
freezes
to
up
know
once
him
in a
very
while,
well. I've gotten to know a
but it
lot of
seems
people
here
very
I'm
well.
getting a pretty good connection today,
You
so
meet
I can only go
fighters
based
and
on
you
what
meet
I
people
see.
that you thought were fighters, but they're
Deplorable
not so good
Penguin
at fighting.
says people should
He's a
be able
fighter.
to follow their faith
We
and
hope
their
you will
relationship with God.
continue to
It's time
serve
respect
your state
freedom
and your
of
country
religion.
in the Senate for a very long time to come.
Let me just see. I wanted to check my notes about the press.
I want to
briefing here. Greg
especially
Jackson sent
thank
some messages. Greg writes,
you for the tremendous work in
the press
ushering
questions about all the
massive
leaders in Europe
tax cuts and
against this, all the
reform
leaders in the Middle East, I
through the
think,
Senate just
in the
happened,
Middle East,
and
you
we
mean,
have a
against
final
this-
step to
against
go.
moving
And
the embassy
I
to
predict we're going
Jerusalem
to be
have been
very
replied
successful.
with,
Talking about massive
they have
tax
been
cuts.
replied to. They are violently anti-Israel and support sanctioning
Tax
Israel, and even went
cuts
so far to
and
say,
reform, but I
the
always
Temple
mention
Mount
tax
isn't part
cuts
of Jewish
first
heritage.
because that's what
There are
people like
pictures
to
of the
hear.
Dome of the Rock from the early 1900s
We're now
that show
one
it
huge
wasn't so
step
important
closer
since it
to
was such a bad
delivering to the
state.
American people the
WAF
historic
in
tax
Israel has
relief
excavated the Mount to remove
as a
all
giant
Jewish artifacts
present
from the area.
for Christmas. Remember, I
And
said
Greg
we're
also
bringing
said
Christmas
the
back.
State Department had not
Christmas
considered
is
Jerusalem
back
as the capital, and when
bigger and
American
better
wanted
than
the birth
ever
certificate to
before.
say
We're bringing
Jerusalem, Israel,
Christmas back.
it ended in a Supreme
And we
Court
say it
battle
now with
which
pride.
sided with the
Let me
state.
just say to those
That
here
makes me
today
want
and all
Greg,
across the country,
real quick here.
Merry Christmas to everybody.
I'm going to get a little summary of this issue.
And also, happy holidays and a great new year. We're going to have a great, great year.
So there's a story
Joining
from
us at
Times
this
today that
ceremony
says
are many
US
other
recognized
tremendous
Jerusalem
leaders from
as the
Utah,
capital, Trump says.
including
But let me see if I
your
can find
great
a little
Senator
background
Mike
here
Lee. Where's
for
Mike?
you.
Mike, come here, Mike. Come here, Mike. Get up here. He worked along with Orrin and
For Arab
the rest
leaders,
of them. We got
word
it
that
done.
the United States would
Mike, thank
formally
you very
recognize Jerusalem as the capital had already caused great consternation. The symbolic statement of the embassy's change of address, many officials warned,
It's not every
was
day the
actually
President of the
less
United States
damaging
asks you to
process
take the
of changing
microphone
United States
from him.
policy on Jerusalem status. For the United States to move the embassy would break with international consensus that the status of Jerusalem remains unsettled. Though Israel houses its parliament, president, prime minister, and most ministries in Jerusalem, and Israelis overwhelmingly want the world to acknowledge the holy city as their seat of government, the international community recognizes the de facto Israeli sovereignty only in West Jerusalem, not the parts of Jerusalem captured in the 1967 war. Here it says here, East Jerusalem was captured by Israeli forces during the Arab-Israeli War of 1967, and the permanent status of Jerusalem as a whole, East and West, was postponed under the Oslo Accords, although Israel extended Jerusalem's municipal borders to encompass a predominantly Arab eastern neighborhood. So there is international disagreement over the status of Jerusalem, and in a number of Muslim countries, there would be anger from a lot of people if President Trump ends up recognizing Jerusalem as the capital, Israel, and also moving the embassy to Jerusalem. The U.S. embassy moves the U.S. embassy to Jerusalem. Okay, well, it's good that we got a little more information on that. Now, Dingle said Dingle got double audio on our stream. Okay, hey, what happened to my speaker? More information on that. Sorry, my speaker is off. I need to plug it in here. Now, Dingle said Dingle got double audio on our stream. I'll check for myself in a second. Sorry for those sounds you just heard. Need to plug it in here. I am not getting double audio, Dingle. I'm only getting single audio. We the People says, I don't think Mueller has any jurisdiction over banks in Germany. It's a different country. So it's a good question, We the People. When I heard the story last night about supposedly, which Sarah Sanders now says is not true, but it was being reported last night that the Mueller investigation had subpoenaed Trump's financial records from Deutsche Bank, I was wondering, does Deutsche Bank have to give those up? Now, Deutsche Bank is in Germany, so technically, oh, look, now all my graphics have stopped. Well, I got to start them up again. Sorry, guys. Let's try this again. Boom. This program, let me tell you, guys, this program, has it been like this the whole time? Unbelievable. Just unbelievable. There we go. That's better. Oops. It's never easy here. I was wondering as well. I was wondering about this issue, but my thought last night when I was thinking about this, what I was wondering is I was thinking like, well, I don't think Deutsche Bank has to comply with the U.S. subpoena because it's in a different country. But at the same time, there might be political reasons Deutsche Bank wants to comply to the subpoena. Maybe certain type of subpoenas, there's some kind of precedent for this, where if there's like a special counsel subpoena asking for something from a European country, they do generally comply with it. So I don't know I don't know about those kind of issues as to, I wouldn't be surprised if legally they don't have to comply because they're not in the U.S. and they're not in the U.S. Although they do have interests in the U.S. So maybe they want to, for my guess is maybe they wouldn't technically have to comply, but they would have reasons to want to comply with the subpoena, but maybe they wouldn't. I don't know. So it's a good question. Thank you, Joe, for letting me know about the stuff freezing up. I don't know why that happened. I have no idea. Okay, let me see if there are more messages here. We'll be on a little while longer talking about the briefing, so if you have any comments, write to me on Twitter, at Lookner, at Lookner. Couple other things said in the briefing. Let me see here. I wrote some notes down. Someone asked about, I believe Cecilia Vega asked about whether President Trump had considered pardoning Michael Flynn or something like that. And then Secretary Sanders said, she hasn't asked President Trump about it because I don't feel that it's necessary until we get further down the road and determine whether or not that's something even needed. Now, I guess, though, he did plead guilty. So in theory, it could be needed now, but maybe she meant, like, will he be charged with anything more serious? Let's see. Press Secretary Sanders said she had there's a great deal of concern at the White House about whether the special counsel's team is biased against the president. And also, I tweeted out about it, but just in case you didn't see. So we went on the air last night because there was a late night report from the New York Times that said that John Conyers was going to announce today that he's retiring in 2018. But it turns out that John Conyers is resigning today and has resigned today. So that happened. And two of his relatives are going to run for his seat. And I also found it pretty amusing given the issues that ABC News had reporting on the General Flynn story. President Trump from Brian Ross, that they tweeted out an incorrect story this morning. It was just really, it was only like an hour ago. And I saw this and it's just like, and they still haven't changed the post. They still haven't taken down the post. It's so stupid. They posted this only like a couple hours ago, and this was well after this story was shown to be false. But they posted, Conyers will not run for re-election in 2018, family member says. This was the incorrect story from last night, but they posted this only a couple hours ago, well after Conyers had already announced he was resigning today. So more issues for ABC News. And they still haven't deleted the tweet. All right, I'm sorry. I got reports that the stream keeps going out or something. I'm not sure why that is. Everything seems fine on my end, but so we'll try to. See, this is it's more YouTube stuff. All right. Well, We're going to wrap up this stream. Maybe this is more YouTube stuff. I don't know. Anyways, we apologize for all these black screens and stuff. I have no idea what this is happening. I'm going to talk to Joe. So we're going to wrap this up. We're going to deal with this now. More issues. I really hope it's not more YouTube stuff. But anyways, Roy Moore rally tonight with Steve Bannon, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Join us for that. And also, thank you everybody who donated to Right Side Broadcasting during the broadcast. We really appreciate it. We are viewer supported. If you want to support Right Side Broadcasting, help us pay to go to the rally on Friday to cover it and to stay on the air and bring news to you. You can support us by going to the bottom of the YouTube chat and click on the $ at the bottom of the YouTube chat, or go to rsbn.tv/donate, rsbn.tv/donate. Also, let's see here. Follow us on Facebook at Right Side Broadcasting to know when we're coming on the air with our YouTube videos. Subscribe to us. When you know when we're coming on the air with our live breaking news video, subscribe to us on YouTube and click the notifications bell so you get notified. Follow us on Twitter at RSB Network. I am on Twitter at @Lookner. I post about breaking news throughout the day, so you can follow me on Twitter at @Lookner. And thanks to the moderators so much. We got Guinevere, Barbara Braley, JC, Jude is there. So thank all of you guys, and Pam C, and Common Sense, and Glen O in the chat room. Thank you to Joe for producing today. Very much appreciated. Thank you to Margaret. Excellent job on the pre-show. Margaret Howell. And let's see here. Thank you everybody for saying thanks in the chat room. People like, I saw some thank yous and now I can't get to them. I can't find them in the chat. Donna Maria, thanks, Donna Maria. Pam Peacock, thank you. And everybody else, Light Switch, and everybody else there in the chat room. Linda, Joshua Sr., thank you, everybody. So, all right, we're going to wrap this up. We'll be back on the air at 7 Eastern, if not before. At 7 Eastern, we will have the Roy Moore rally with special guest Steve Bannon. For now, I am Steve Lookner. Have a great day, everybody, and we'll see you soon here at Right Side Broadcasting.